Welcome back to Nerd Culture News, where we bring you facts about fiction. The Marvels trailer dropped yesterday, and I have very mixed feelings about this. See, when the idea of Captain Marvel 2, as they were originally calling it, came out, I didn't care that much. I just really wasn't the biggest fan of Captain Marvel, the first movie. It was just so mid-tier for Marvel for me. But then Miss Marvel came out, the TV show, which I had very low expectations because I thought that it was going to be a Disney Channel-esque Marvel show. I thought that we were basically getting Lizzie McGuire with superpowers. But then I watched it and I fell in love with this show. The family dynamic in Miss Marvel is easily the best in the MCU by far. So with all of that, I'm actually pretty excited for the Marvels movie, something that when it was first announced, I didn't think that I would be. And it looks like House of the Dragon Season 2 has went into production. I have been loving what they did with the first season. I love everything that they did. And I was a little bit sad finding out when the first season ended that they haven't even started production, but I can kind of understand why. Because in the last season of Game of Thrones, a lot of people were dissatisfied. A lot of people were dissatisfied through the last 2 seasons of Game of Thrones. So basically going and making a spinoff series, it's kind of a gamble to see if it's going to do well or not, but thankfully it ended up being amazing, and we just are going to have a little bit more of a wait time before we're going to actually get that season. It's probably going to be at best late next year. Nintendo has announced a live event happening in Seattle. This is coming on the heels of finding out that E3 just was canceled. It's not happening, I guess, anymore. And I can very much understand why, because a lot of these larger video game companies, especially the ones with their own consoles, have just started having their own events. It's getting them just as much hype and costing them a fraction. So I can understand why they're splitting away from E3. That just became a spectacle that cost them more and more as things went along with very little return. Now, this live event has been done before in Japan, and it's not something where they typically give a bunch of big announcements. So I wouldn't expect any big games to come from this. I wouldn't expect a new console announcement, even though that is something that I do think that we'll hear within the next year. This is more of just like the celebratory part you would get from Nintendo at something like E3, with things like tournaments and just, concerts with music from the games, things of that assortment that are very fun, less fun on the news side, which is the thing that most people were getting hyped up about when it comes to E3. Emma Watson recently revealed that she actively protested the idea of making a Cursed Child or sequel Harry Potter movie, going as far as contacting other cast members and being like, don't do the movie. All of this obviously being in protest to a lot of J.K. Rowling's statements, and a lot of the cast members feeling hurt because of the relationship that they had with her and feeling betrayed after a lot of her statements have come forward. This would make a lot of sense since recently Warner Brothers has come forward and said that they're wanting to do a reboot television series for HBO Max, something that I do think could go very well, but I'm also someone that doesn't get mad every time a franchise gets rebooted. It's gonna be rebooted eventually, and I think that exploring it in a different medium than movies is a good idea, basically going through the details that you couldn't put in the movies that were in the books. On the other side of that, I also understand people that don't want to indulge in any of J.K. Rowling's works, which, if you watch yesterday's episode, I gave a recommendation of a series that was similar to Harry Potter that you might enjoy. It's Wednesday, so that means that there's a lot of TV shows that come out today. One of the big ones, of course, being The Mandalorian, which has been seeing declining viewership, but I have to say that this episode was probably one of the best ones that we have had in at least this season. And I know that Boba Fett was not technically a Mandalorian season, but it kind of felt like one in. So it feels like we've had almost 2 seasons worth of kind of lower points for the Mandalorian. So it's nice to see this like bigger buildup that you can tell is eventually going to bleed over into Ahsoka and eventually that Mandalorian movie that they announced at Star Wars Celebration. One Piece creator Oda is up to his goofy antics once again, where he has been asking AI to write the newest chapters of One Piece, and his reactions are typically around the idea of, no, that's not good enough, asking it to rewrite it again, and then when it basically tells him eventually to send the Straw Hats into space, he says, yeah, we're going to use that idea this week, which is terrifying considering where we're at in the story right now. And if you've been watching or reading One Piece lately, definitely tell me where you're at and where you think the story is about to head in the comments. Thank you for watching my new episode of Nerd Culture News. If you enjoyed it, please give me a like, subscribe, and hell, talk to me in the comments about some of the things that we discussed today. Have yourself a wonderful day.